Serafina, let's get a divorce. In the third year of hiding her identity as a top heiress to marry the billionaire CEO, he proposed divorce. Julian Croft's tone was calm and steady, as if he were discussing something utterly mundane. But those 5 words struck Serafina Vance like a physical blow, making her sway. She couldn't help but look at the woman standing beside him. Is it because she's back? 3 years ago, Isabelle Snow had rejected Julian's marriage proposal to pursue her dreams abroad. The proud young master of the Croft family, on the very next day, had picked a random woman to marry. He chose Serafina because she was a commoner with no background. She would pose no threat to him when the time came for a divorce. And so, Serafina had dutifully played the part of a pawn in his emotional game for 3 years. She was obedient to a fault, attending to his every need. She thought she might finally win his heart. But Isabelle's return had reduced her 3 years of effort to nothing. Julian's dark eyes were deep. Yes, he couldn't deny that. Despite her humble status, Serafina was a capable homemaker, a wife in the most traditional sense. But Julian had never wanted a model housewife. He needed a woman who was brilliant enough to stand with him at the same level. Clearly, Serafina was not that woman. He disliked her background and detested her meek, dependent nature. Like a clinging vine, he placed the signed divorce agreement on the table. Sign it. Name your price. I'll give you whatever you want. Seeing the indifference in his eyes, Serafina felt a suffocating tightness in her chest. 3 years of marriage, and he couldn't wait to be rid of her. When she didn't speak, Julian pulled out a check and placed it on the table. This is $10 million. Is that enough? A sour numbness spread through Serafina's heart. After a long moment, she spoke, her voice hoarse. Julian, in your eyes, what am I? A transparent wife who had to tolerate you bringing your old flame home. A beggar who could be dismissed with $10 million. Or a pathetic fool who gave up everything to love you, only to receive nothing in return. She had tried for 3 whole years. Even a stone should have been warmed by now. How could he trample her dignity underfoot and ignore all the love she had given him? Julian looked at her despairing face, his expression calm. When we got married, I told you, you would be my wife, and I would give you the status of a wealthy madam. Nothing more. It was like a bucket of ice water had been thrown over her, chilling her to the bone. Beside them, Isabelle watched with satisfaction. She feigned weakness and collapsed into Julian's arms. Julian, I feel so dizzy. I think I had too much to drink at the party. Just as she intended, she instantly captured Julian's full attention. He had no more time for Serafina. He coldly told Serafina, sign the papers and leave as soon as possible, before sweeping Isabelle into his arms and heading upstairs. The next moment, Serafina watched in horror as he carried Isabelle into their bedroom. She felt as if all the blood had been drained from her body, frozen to the spot. It was true. She had been wrong from the very beginning. Julian Croft was never the right man for her. She closed her eyes as a single tear traced a path down her cheek. An intense, sharp pain radiated from her heart, making it hard to breathe. It was time to see clearly. She reached for the divorce papers on the table and signed her name with deliberate strokes. Then she picked up the check and tore it into tiny pieces. She didn't want a single cent of the Croft family's money. She had been a fool. From now on, she would never so foolishly give her heart away again. After doing all this, Serafina packed her belongings and left the Croft villa without a backward glance. A torrential downpour raged outside. She threw her apron and all her luggage into the trash, as if discarding the foolish, miserable version of herself from the past 3 years. Then she stood in the rain, her eyes clear and cold, and made a call. Take me home. 20 minutes later, a fleet of over 100 limited edition luxury cars sped through the rainy night. The procession was so grand that the engine noise alerted the Croft family servants. A group of them ran out, only to see a cloud of dust in the distance. Had they seen it wrong? The person picked up by that convoy. Could it have been the madam? The servants went back inside, just as Julian came downstairs after putting Isabelle to bed. One of the braver ones spoke up. Sir, I think a fleet of 100 luxury cars just came to pick up the madam. Julian's expression was icy. He didn't even look up. The Croft family has no need for servants with poor eyesight. The servants flinched. They immediately remembered that the madam had no background. came from the countryside, and had only a middle school education. Since marrying into the Croft family, she had been mocked as a sparrow trying to become a phoenix. This was why the master disliked her and his mother despised her. How could she possibly know people who drove such cars? And those cars, they were incredibly expensive. Owning one was a big deal, let alone 100. It seemed they had indeed been mistaken. Afraid of losing their jobs, the servants quickly apologized and never mentioned the matter again. Meanwhile, the fleet of luxury cars sped on, finally stopping in front of a magnificent estate. Dozens of bodyguards got out in unison, first opening the door of the lead-stretch Lincoln before lining up respectfully on both sides. The butler, Mr. Lee, ran out from the estate, seeing that it was truly Serafina. He was overjoyed. "Miss Serafina, you've finally come back." Serafina smiled faintly, her tone carrying the authority of someone in command. "Uncle Lee, I'm back." The next moment, her mother also came out to greet her. "Serafina, is that you?" Seeing the white strands in her mother's hair, Serafina's eyes reddened. "Mom, I'm sorry. I've been an unfilial daughter. I'll never run away from home again." 3 years ago, after falling in love with Julian and hearing he wanted a wife with no background, she had defied her family's wishes, hidden her identity, and married him. She thought she was pursuing true love, but her heart had been trampled. Now, she finally understood. She was born to soar. To think that for the past 3 years, she had willingly become a caged bird for a man. It was laughable. Her mother, of course, knew Serafina's capabilities. A double doctorate from Harvard, she was strategic and decisive, a rare business prodigy. Yet, 3 years ago, for love, she had willingly given it all up to become a housewife. Seeing that her daughter had come to her senses, she excitedly gripped her hand. "You're finally back." In these 3 years, the Vance Corporation has had one crisis after another under your cousin's management. Serafina thought of her cousin's dissolute nature and wasn't surprised. A cold, determined light shone in her eyes. "Don't worry, now that I'm back, I won't let him run wild anymore." The Vance Corporation was her grandfather's legacy. She wouldn't let anyone tarnish it. The next day, news of Miss Vance's return spread throughout the corporation. After old Mr. Vance had passed away years ago and left the vast family business to Serafina. She had ruled with an iron fist, swiftly quelling the internal factions that had grown restless after his death. But then she had disappeared. Now, with her return, everyone was curious about her. Ethan Vance hadn't seen his cousin in 3 years and thought his position as CEO was secure. Even with the news of her return spreading, he refused to vacate the CEO's office. "What can a woman do to me?" he thought. He had always been resentful that the old man had left the company to her. When Serafina left 3 years ago, she had left a team in place. But Ethan had used his family status to force them out and seize the position of acting CEO. He wasn't about to give it up now. But soon, the office door was flung open. 4 bodyguards in black suits marched in and, without a word, began tossing his belongings out. 2 of them then lifted his entire office chair, with him still in it, and started carrying him out. "Let go of me. Let me go." Just then, a woman with dark hair, red lips, and wearing a Chanel suit walked in. Serafina took off her sunglasses and smiled slightly. "Cousin, my welcome back gift. Do you like it?" "Serafina Vance, what gives you the right to kick me out?" Ethan's face was dark with rage. Serafina slowly produced a document. "This does." Ethan looked at it and was speechless. It was their grandfather's will, clearly stating that Serafina was to inherit the Vance Corporation. "But I've been managing the company for the past 3 years. You've been managing it." Serafina's gaze was icy. "In 3 years, how much has the company lost? How much money has lined your pockets? Do you need me to draw up a report for you?" Ethan froze. He had forgotten. Before she disappeared, his cousin was a Harvard graduate, the heir their grandfather had favored most. "You'd better leave while I'm not inclined to pursue this. Otherwise, if I make you pay back what you've embezzled, I'm afraid you'll be bankrupt." In the end, Ethan could only leave the Vance Corporation in disgrace. Serafina officially took over the group. But the situation was not good, just as her mother had said. The only reason the company hadn't collapsed under Ethan's management was its strong foundation. She worked for days on end, just to sort through the mess of the past few years. 3 days later, her secretary opened the office door. Ms. Vance. The former vice president Ethan had a dinner meeting this afternoon regarding an investment project. Will you be attending? Serafina frowned. She didn't want to attend a meeting set by Ethan, but she had heard many company heads would be there. What kind of investment was so attractive? After a moment's thought, she made a decision. Arrange it for me. Meanwhile, at Croft Holdings, Julian's assistant entered his office. Mr. Croft, the heiress of the Vance Corporation has recently returned. Oh, Julian looked up with interest. He had long heard of the formidable reputation of this Vance heiress. Years ago, after the chairman's death, she, a young woman, had taken over and, with decisive action, stabilized a teetering empire. She was clearly a force to be reckoned with. Julian had been interested in her years ago and had even considered a partnership. But she had suddenly disappeared. And now, she was back, sensing his boss's interest. The assistant added, "There's a dinner invitation for you tonight. I hear the new CEO of Vance Corporation will be there. Would you like to attend?" A flicker of something moved in Julian's dark eyes. "I'll go," he said lightly. Understood. That evening, at the private dining room, Serafina arrived a little late. The room fell silent for a moment as she entered. Dozens of men in suits sized her up. Unfazed, Serafina walked in and introduced herself. "Good evening, everyone. I am Serafina Vance, the new CEO of the Vance Corporation." With that, she poured herself a glass of spirits. "My apologies for being late. Please, allow me to toast my apology." After downing the strong liquor in one go, the men at the table, impressed by her straightforwardness, began to speak. "Ms. Vance is certainly direct. We've long heard that the Vance heiress is extraordinary. Truly impressive. Ms. Vance, please, have a seat. You're not leaving until you've had your fill tonight." Amid the welcome, Serafina sat down, making small talk while listening intently to their discussion about the investment. The host was a man named Vincent, who had apparently just returned from Wall Street. He was the one leading the investment. After Serafina arrived, he kept murmuring in her ear about how rare and profitable this project was. After a while, someone else mentioned, "Isn't Mr. Croft from Croft Holdings here yet?" Serafina's head snapped up. Julian was coming. Just then, a waiter knocked on the door. "Excuse me, Mr. Croft from Croft Holdings has arrived." Julian stepped out of the elevator and followed the waiter to the private room. When he entered, only men were present. He scanned the room. The female CEO wasn't there. For some reason, a wave of disappointment washed over him. He cleared his throat. "Apologies for my tardiness." Outside the room, Serafina, having had a few drinks, was being helped into an elevator by another man in a suit. Liam Sterling looked at her with amusement. "Couldn't find you for 3 years. And now I run into you at a dinner." Serafina smiled faintly. "I guess we're fated to meet." Liam was her childhood friend. When Serafina had tried to leave earlier, Vincent had insisted she stay. Luckily, Liam was passing by, heard her voice, and helped her get away. They went down to the underground parking, and Liam drove her home in his Maybach. The cool night air on her face was refreshing. "I heard Julian was coming too. Did you run off early just to avoid your ex-husband?" Hearing that name again, she expected to feel a pang of sadness, but her heart was calm. "No," she replied evenly. "I just think there's something wrong with this investor." Liam's expression turned serious. "You mean Vincent, the guy from Wall Street?" Serafina nodded. "We talked for 20 minutes, and all he mentioned was high returns and high interest rates, without a single word about the risks. And his resume seems too perfect to be true. A Wall Street trader who's never lost a battle suddenly comes back to the country with a project that's practically giving away money. Is he running a charity?" Her words made Liam suspicious as well. "He approached my grandfather a while back, but my old man is conservative and doesn't do these kinds of investments. But hearing you say it, it does sound strange." Serafina shook her head. The biggest taboo in business was chasing profits blindly. So, whether Julian came or not, she had planned to leave. The next day, Serafina instructed her assistant, "We're pulling out of Vincent's investment. Cancel the project." The assistant was confused. "But several other companies have increased their investment." "Are you sure?" Serafina nodded firmly. Yes. Her decision gave the old guard on the board of directors, who were already skeptical of her, an opportunity to criticize. With Ethan fanning the flames from behind the scenes, the whole company was soon whispering that the new female CEO was just a pretty face with no business sense, who had already cost them a major project. Serafina was aware of the gossip, but she paid it no mind and continued with her work. About 10 days later, the news broke. Vincent had vanished with the billions he had raised in investments. An investigation revealed he was a known financial fraud in North America, specializing in scamming large corporations. Of all the companies he had targeted, only 2 had escaped unscathed. One was the Vance Corporation, and the other was Julian Croft's Croft Holdings. Suddenly, those who had doubted Serafina had nothing more to say. Meanwhile, at Croft Holdings, the assistant reported the news to Julian. Mr. Croft, you were right. That Vincent was a fraud. That night, Julian had only stayed for half an hour before sensing something was wrong and leaving. He looked at his computer, unfazed. Anyone who fell for such a scam deserved to be cheated. The assistant added, I heard the Vance CEO also left early that night. You and she were the only 2 who didn't fall for it. Her again. It seemed that even after 3 years, the heiress's mind was as sharp as ever. He wondered how her cousin could be so incompetent. Croft Holdings and Vance Corporation were supposed to have a partnership this year, but Ethan's foolishness had made Julian, who had no patience for idiots, abandon the idea. Now, perhaps, it was worth another try. He said nonchalantly, contact Vance Corporation. Ask if they're still interested in the partnership we proposed at the beginning of the year. Yes, sir. But the response from Vance Corporation was swift and blunt. No interest. Not considering it. No partnership. The refusal was so absolute, it left no room for negotiation. Was the Vance heiress particularly unwilling to work with Croft Holdings? But Julian didn't dwell on it. He, too, was a proud man and had no time to psychoanalyze others. He put the matter out of his mind. Serafina, you just saved Vance Corporation hundreds of millions. You should reward yourself. Seeing that Serafina had been engrossed in work ever since she came back, Liam, at her mother's request, had dragged her out shopping. Serafina had little desire for shopping, but she didn't want to disappoint her mother and friend, so she went along to the city's largest mall. They walked into a luxury shoe store. Looking at the sparkling high heels, her interest was genuinely piqued. That's more like it. Look at you. Still wearing shoes from 3 years ago. Liam was indignant on her behalf. Did the Crofts go bankrupt? Did Julian never spend any money on you? Serafina's gaze softened, a little lost in thought. She had been so focused on pleasing Julian back then. She had no time to think about dressing up. Liam thought he had touched a sore spot. Just then, his phone rang. He gave her an apologetic wave and stepped out to answer it. Serafina found it amusing. She had just been reminiscing. After browsing a little longer, she stopped in front of a display with a pair of dark green, classic silk high heels. Could I see these? The sales assistant brought them out. Serafina liked them instantly and was about to try them on when a familiar, sharp voice came from behind her. Serafina. Eleanor Croft and Isabelle Snow had just entered the store and saw a familiar figure. Her former, penniless daughter. In-law. Serafina glanced at them without a change in expression and turned her attention back to the shoes. Eleanor was furious. This country bumpkin used to fawn over her, and now she dared to ignore her after the divorce. Using the alimony you got from Julian to buy luxury goods, she said cuttingly. Even in designer clothes, you can't hide the stench of poverty. Serafina frowned. I didn't take a single cent of your family's money. You can ask Julian if you don't believe me. Eleanor laughed, as if she'd heard a joke. A poor girl from the countryside like you wouldn't take our money. Her attitude was so vile that Serafina, who had only tolerated her for Julian's sake, was about to speak up. But Isabelle, who had heard enough, interjected smoothly. All right, Auntie, don't let this ruin your shopping trip. Eleanor snorted and turned to look at other shoes. But a few minutes later, Isabelle had also set her sights on the same pair of shoes in Serafina's hands. The last pair in the store. She walked over to Serafina. Miss Vance, are you buying these? I'd like to buy them too. And if you're not, I'd rather not buy a pair someone else has tried on. though her tone was conciliatory. She was clearly assuming Serafina couldn't afford them and was trying to stop her from even trying them on. Serafina found it laughable. This Isabelle, with her gentle and kind facade, was all soft words and sharp knives. Miss Snow, you speak with such authority. One might think you own the store. Isabelle immediately put on a wronged expression. I just don't want you to waste everyone's time if you try them on and don't buy them. Just then, Eleanor walked over again. Exactly. Who would want to buy shoes that someone like you has tried on? Besides, didn't you say you didn't take my son's money? Can you even afford them? Serafina was about to lose her temper when Liam's cold voice came from behind her. Wrap these up. He walked to Serafina's side and then said to the sales assistant. And find out how many pairs of these are left in the entire city. We'll buy them all. Serafina thought it was unnecessary and tugged at his sleeve. But Liam continued. It's fine. It would be bad luck to wear the same shoes as certain people of low character. The insult was clearly aimed at Isabelle. Her face flushed. But Liam looked like someone not to be trifled with. Even Eleanor could only glare at him. Her face pale. Who is this man? Willing to spend so much on Serafina. After the shoes were wrapped, Liam took Serafina's hand and led her out, not giving the other two women a second glance. Watching them leave, Isabelle said suggestively, that man seems very good to Miss Vance. No wonder she didn't want Julian's money when they divorced. Eleanor said hatefully, so what if she's found a new rich man? She'll just be his plaything for a while. At the Croft residence, Julian was holding a beautifully carved wooden object he had found in the bedroom. It was a lifelike deer, so exquisitely made it couldn't be a mass-produced item. It seemed to have been carved by hand. Then, he noticed a small character engraved at the bottom. Vance. Did Serafina carve this? How could an uneducated woman from the countryside create such a work of art? Julian's eyes narrowed, lost in thought. He had never been interested in Serafina's life. His knowledge of her limited to her name. He had no idea what she could or couldn't do. Thinking back, he did remember her often whittling a piece of wood. For some reason, he didn't throw the carving away. Perhaps it was just too beautiful to discard. Julian opened a cabinet and placed the carving at the very bottom. As he looked up, he saw rows of clothes, neatly categorized. He paused again. Remembering this was also Serafina's doing. She was incredibly meticulous. Knowing he was always busy with different events, she would organize his wardrobe by occasion, putting together complete outfits with accessories, work attire, business dinners, events, galas. He could just grab what he needed and go. And her taste was impeccable. The outfits she chose were simple yet stylish, rivaling those of a professional stylist. As Julian thought about it, his brow furrowed. Was Serafina really just an uneducated country girl? Just as the thought crossed his mind, the door opened and Isabelle walked in. Julian instinctively closed the wardrobe. What is it? Isabelle, still smarting from her encounter with Serafina, couldn't pass up the chance to complain. Nothing, she said deliberately. It's just that Auntie is a little upset. Why? She bit her lip. We ran into Serafina at the mall today. She was with a very wealthy man. They seemed very close. And she said some things to Andy. A man. A strange feeling flickered in his chest. She had acted like she was dying for him. And now she was in another man's arms so soon. For some reason, an image of Serafina's gentle demeanor in front of him flashed in his mind. Would she be like that with other men? He frowned and said coldly, "We're divorced. She's not our concern." With that, he strode out of the bedroom and into his study. But the name Serafina kept echoing in his mind. Her carving, her outfits, and this new man. He suddenly felt like he had never known his so-called ex-wife at all. After a long pause, he made a call. "I need you to run a background check on someone." After a short break, Serafina threw herself back into work. Liam still came to see her frequently, either asking her to lunch or trying to drag her out for fun, much to her annoyance. That afternoon, Liam snuck away from his own company and came to Vance Corporation. Serafina was unfazed. No lunch, no golf, no racing. Liam feigned a broken heart. "You're so cold. And here I was, with a surprise for you." That got her attention. "What?" He smiled mysteriously and showed her his phone. It was a private online forum. It was filled with wealthy Chinese American wives, all cursing Isabelle Snow. Some had even posted hotel screenshots of Isabelle with their husbands. Your ex-husbands. One true love acts all sophisticated. But she was a notorious social climber in North America. Her reputation was so bad she had to come back here. The rumor is, out of every 10 wealthy wives in her circle there, at least 3 had their husbands seduced by her. Serafina scrolled through the forum for a bit, finding some of the pictures truly distasteful, and quickly closed it. She was stunned. The woman Julian had been pining for was this kind of person. She didn't know whether he was blind, or if she had been blind for ever falling for him. Liam said mischievously, "Do you want to tell your unfortunate ex-husband and watch his reaction?" Serafina tossed the phone back. Her interest gone. Not interested. Why would she? A scumbag and a cheat were a perfect match. Meanwhile, in the Croft study, the person Julian had sent to investigate Serafina reported back. The information we have is the same as 3 years ago. And after she left the Croft estate, there's no trace of her. The voice on the other end was precise. Julian's dark eyes were bottomless pools as he hung up. For the first time, he found this ex-wife, whom he had once disdained, to be rather mysterious. Where had she gone? Where could she have gone? After a moment, for reasons he couldn't explain, he found her number in his contacts and, on an impulse, dialed it. A mechanical female voice answered immediately. He had been blocked. Julian was stunned for a second, then let out a cold, harsh laugh and threw his phone onto the desk. A few hours later, Isabelle entered the study. Julian was working. "Julian," she said tentatively, "you work so late every day. You should find someone to share the burden, or your health will suffer." "It's fine," he replied dismissively. "You go rest." "But I want to help you," Isabelle pressed. Julian was dealing with an urgent contract, and a trace of impatience crept into his voice. "I don't need it." He didn't look up, so he didn't see the ambition and greed in her eyes. She was not from a wealthy family, though her parents were intellectuals. They weren't rich. Isabelle had been immersed in the world of power and money for years and couldn't escape it. She wouldn't have returned if she hadn't been forced out of the US. Upon her return, knowing Julian hadn't forgotten her, she wasn't about to let him go. But more than Julian, she wanted the vast Croft fortune. Julian treated her well, but he was always cautious when it came to his company. She could never find a way to get involved in Croft Holdings, and she was afraid of being too obvious and raising his suspicions. Sensing his own harsh tone, Julian paused. "Isabelle, your birthday is coming up. I'm planning a party for you. You should rest and not worry about other things." Isabelle could only force a smile. "Thank you, Julian." As she turned to leave, the frustration in her eyes was palpable. Back in her room, a new plan began to form. Yesterday, at a club, she had run into Ethan Vance, the recently ousted CEO of Vance Corporation. Vance Corporation, the company of the city's richest family. If she could get her hands on that, what would she have to worry about? In her eyes, the new female CEO was just a pampered heiress, and Ethan was an idiot. This family was much easier to manipulate than Julian. A vicious glint appeared in Isabelle's eyes. She made a decision and dialed Ethan's number. "Mr. Vance, how about we make a deal?" A few days later, while having dinner with Liam, Serafina mentioned Ethan's strange behavior. "He's always hated that grandfather gave the company to me. Now he's suddenly offering to treat me to a meal to apologize." Liam, thinking of Ethan's reputation over the past 3 years, said seriously, "Serafina, your cousin is a man of questionable character. You should be careful." Serafina knew that. It was why her grandfather hadn't left him any shares. Thinking about the dinner tomorrow, she felt something was off. "Liam, can you find out what Ethan's been up to these past few days?" Worried for her safety, Liam immediately had someone investigate. The results were chilling. Seeing what Ethan had bought on the surveillance footage, Liam's face turned ashen. "I'm going to drag that animal over here right now." Serafina stopped him, her own eyes cold. "Not yet. You're not going to let him get away with this." "He wanted to." Serafina shook her head. "I'm not that forgiving. But we don't have enough evidence right now. I have to go to the dinner tomorrow to catch him in the act." She let out a cold laugh. "My dear cousin has had it too easy. It's time he went where he belongs and did some serious reflection." The next day, Serafina went alone to the club where Ethan had invited her. She walked into the private room. which was empty and filled with a strong fragrance. Ethan hadn't arrived yet. In fact, he and Isabelle were in the room next door, listening. Suddenly, a sharp scream came from Serafina's room. Did it work? Ethan asked excitedly. Isabelle, not wanting to get her hands dirty, said, "You go check." Ethan rushed out, eagerly calling his assistant to let the reporters in. But the assistant stammered, "Mr. Vance, we've been discovered." Ethan frowned and pushed open the door to Serafina's room. Useless. Who discovered? His words died in his throat. Serafina was not passed out from any drug. She was sitting on the sofa, looking at him coldly. The 3 thugs he had hired were on their knees, held down by several bodyguards. He began to tremble, unable to speak clearly. You didn't fall for it. With a brain like yours, you're trying to plot against people," Serafina said mockingly. "Ethan, I've always been fair to you. And you tried to drug me, hire men to assault me, and call reporters to publicize it. What? Did you think I would die of shame and hand over the company to you? Dream on." With his plan exposed, a vicious look crossed Ethan's face. "That's right. I wanted to harm you. The Vance Corporation should have been mine." Serafina saw he was beyond saving. Stubborn fool. Then go repent in prison. Just then, several police officers rushed in and handcuffed him. Only then did Ethan realize this was not something money could solve. This was a serious crime. "It wasn't my idea," he shouted desperately. "It was Isabelle. She's right next door. Go get her." Hearing that name, Serafina's brow furrowed. The police immediately went to the next room. But Isabelle, seeing things had gone wrong, had already fled. Serafina rushed to the window and saw a familiar luxury car pulling away from the curb below. She recognized the license plate. It was one of Julian's cars. Ethan was still shouting his innocence. But someone as cunning as Isabelle had made sure there was no evidence. She had only ever discussed the plan with him in person. The drugs, the thugs. Ethan had arranged it all. She hadn't even shown her face. Serafina's eyes were like ice. Without a single glance at Ethan, she walked out. That evening, at the Vance estate, Liam had the full story. Ethan did meet with Isabelle twice before he bought the drug. Serafina sneered. "I didn't have time to deal with her, and she delivers herself to my door." Originally, she truly hadn't planned on wasting time on this woman. She had stolen a man who didn't love her. Serafina wasn't going to seek revenge for that. But this was the result of her leniency. Isabelle had used such a vicious tactic against her and was now after the company. If something happened to Serafina, Ethan would be the primary heir. With a little manipulation of that fool, the vast family fortune would be hers for the taking. What a plan! Serafina closed her eyes for a moment, then let out a short, sharp laugh. Liam looked at her. "Serafina, what do you want to do?" She smiled. "I hear Julian is throwing her a birthday party. Such a grand event. It wouldn't be right if I didn't give them a little something, would it?" The next day, Julian received a call at his office from the CEO's office at Vance Corporation. The secretary's voice was sweet as she repeated Serafina's instructions verbatim. "Mr. Croft, our CEO would like to know if the partnership you proposed is still on the table." Julian paused. This Vance CEO was certainly unpredictable. Last time, she had acted as if she would never work with him, and now she was calling him. He toyed with the expensive pen in his hand. What made her change her mind? "Our CEO says it's better to have a friend than an enemy. She admits she was wrong last time. If you would agree, we would be very grateful." Julian narrowed his eyes. "How do I know you're serious this time? We hear you're hosting a birthday party for your girlfriend soon. As a gesture of our sincerity, our CEO will attend with a significant gift." It seemed the heiress was indeed sincere. Julian was not one to hold a grudge. A partnership with Vance Corporation would be profitable. Now that they were making overtures, he wouldn't refuse. "Very well. I look forward to her presence." The day of the birthday party. The scene was indeed grand. Julian had spared no expense for Isabelle, booking the city's most expensive hotel. The parking lot was filled with luxury cars. Socialites and heiresses flocked around Isabelle, treating her like a princess. Even her obsessed parents were there, listening to endless praise about their daughter from a scholarly family. Isabelle's vanity was immensely satisfied, making up for the recent failure of her plan. See, even without a vast fortune, she was still the center of attention. with a respectable family and a lavish party that every girl envied, and the love of Julian Croft. Julian accompanied Isabelle, greeting guests. He disliked such noisy gatherings, but he endured it for her. Eleanor Croft was also there in a magnificent gown, her every word dripping with satisfaction for Isabelle. Yes, Julian and Isabelle will be getting engaged soon. A girl like Isabelle is the only one who deserves him. His ex-wife. Don't even mention that country bumpkin. She is nothing. How could she compare to Isabelle? She's not even worthy of polishing Isabelle's shoes. Julian, passing by, overheard his mother's blatant insults of Serafina. He frowned, thinking it was tasteless for his mother to say such things at a public event. Isabelle heard it too and was, of course, delighted. But she didn't notice three more elegantly dressed women enter the ballroom. The women quietly approached Isabelle, then suddenly lunged at her, punching and kicking. Even Julian was caught off guard, pushed aside by them. You bitch. Did you think we wouldn't find you just because you ran back to this country? You homewrecker. You have the audacity to celebrate your birthday. The entire hall fell silent. Isabelle's hair was a mess, her gown torn. When Julian recovered, his eyes were dark with fury. He stepped in to stop them. Who sent you to cause trouble here? The women were unfazed. She's the bitch who seduced my husband. I have every right to hit her. Isabelle cowered behind Julian, denying everything. No, Julian. They're lying. I've never even met them. Just then, the large screen at the front of the hall went black for a second, then lit up with a slideshow of photos. Isabelle in hotel rooms with various older, wealthy men in the U.S. The photos cycled through, and the crowd gasped. Isabelle's intellectual parents nearly fainted from shock. Julian's face was thunderous, his icy gaze fixed on Isabelle. Isabelle was pale as a ghost, still trying to deny it. It's not me. Those photos must be fake. Julian, you have to believe me. One of the wives spoke up again. Fake. I have videos. Do you want me to play them for everyone so they can see for themselves? The threat made Isabelle tremble, her lips quivering, unable to speak. The hall was dead silent. Suddenly, the doorman's loud announcement cut through the silence. Exceptionally jarring. The CEO of Vance Corporation, Miss Serafina Vance, has arrived. The double doors swung open, and a woman in a silver couture gown gracefully walked in, her eyes beautiful, a smile playing on her red lips. Seeing the elegantly dressed Serafina, a panicked Isabelle clung to her as if she were a lifeline. Serafina, you did this. You're trying to ruin me. Julian was also stunned by Serafina's arrival. His suspicions were correct. Serafina was no uneducated country girl, but he had never imagined she was the heiress of the Vance Corporation. For 3 years, she had been deceiving him, and not just her. Even Isabelle, whom he had thought so pure and innocent, had been lying to him. The ever-proud Julian Croft, played for a fool by 2 women. His face was impossibly dark. Serafina walked gracefully toward Isabelle, step by step. Don't just throw baseless accusations around. How did I ruin you? Was I the one who forced you to seduce other women's husbands? Serafina's calm tone and powerful presence silenced Isabelle, but she quickly recovered. Her only option was to deny everything and insist Serafina had framed her. Otherwise, Julian would never forgive her. She knew him too well. He hated being deceived. It was you. You hate me for taking Julian from you. So you set me up. Serafina let out a light laugh. A man. He's not worth that much of my effort. At her words, an unreadable expression flickered in Julian's eyes. You? What do you mean? Isabelle stammered, her panic growing. Serafina's gaze swept over Isabelle like a hawk eyeing its prey. What do you think? It seemed Serafina knew about her plot with Ethan. That was a far more serious crime than seducing married men. That could land her in jail. Isabelle pinned her hopes on Julian. She rushed to him, clinging to his arm. Julian, Serafina is framing me. You have to believe me. I love you so much. How could I do those things? Julian was an intelligent man. He had already pieced together most of the story. Ethan's arrest must have been Serafina's doing. And it must have been because he had crossed her in some way. And Isabelle was deeply involved. Julian pulled his arm from Isabelle's grasp and gave her a look of disgust. Isabelle collapsed to the floor, a cold dread washing over her. She was finished. She had nothing left. Her reputation was ruined. and Julian had abandoned her. The once lively birthday party ended in disgrace. Isabelle's scandal shot to the top of the trending lists online, but it was quickly suppressed. Serafina knew Julian was behind it, but she didn't intervene. Her goal had been achieved. She had gotten her revenge on Isabelle and given Julian a taste of his own medicine. A man as proud as Julian, learning that his beloved girlfriend was such a person, and having it all exposed publicly, would be disgusted for a long time. Thinking about it, Serafina found it almost funny. They deserved each other. A scumbag and a cheat. A match made in heaven. Julian probably didn't even love Isabelle that much. It was more likely an obsession. Otherwise, why would he have married someone else the moment she left the country? Now, even that lingering obsession was likely gone. All that was left for him was endless regret. Regret for not seeing Isabelle for who she truly was sooner. With his resources, finding out about her past would have been easy. But he hadn't bothered. He was too confident in her. Or rather, too confident in himself. Now, Ethan was in prison. Serafina had later provided the police with evidence of his embezzlement and abuse of company funds. His sentence would likely be long. His family, Serafina's aunt and her husband, constantly came to bother her, but they couldn't get into the company, so they tried her home. Eventually, Serafina moved out to one of her own private villas, and they gave up. Her grandfather had 2 children, her father and her aunt, Jasmine. Her father had died in a car accident when she was young, so she was raised mostly by her grandfather, who had instilled in her a natural talent for business. Ethan, on the other hand, had been spoiled by his mother, Jasmine, and grew up to be a hedonistic heir with an inflated sense of ambition. Under Serafina's leadership, the Vance Corporation was back on track, slowly regaining its former glory. The shareholders' initial skepticism had turned into praise, and the remnants of Ethan's cronies had been thoroughly purged. Serafina had just sat down in her office when there was a knock on the door. "Come in." Her secretary, Anne, entered, holding a massive bouquet of roses that completely obscured her. She carefully placed them on Serafina's desk. "Ms. Vance, your flowers." Serafina examined the bouquet and found a card inside. It read, "To a pleasant partnership." The font was printed, likely from the florist. "Who sent these?" "They were delivered to the front desk for you, so I brought them up. I'm not sure who they're from." And replied. The mystery was solved soon enough when an unexpected visitor arrived, Julian Croft. As the CEO of their partner company, Serafina had to receive him. Julian sat in the reception room, leisurely sipping coffee. Soon, the door opened. Serafina entered, wearing a black suit dress and high heels, her hair in a low ponytail, the very picture of a powerful businesswoman. Seeing her like this, Julian felt a sense of both familiarity and strangeness. He had only ever seen her as a tool to spite Isabelle, never truly looking at her. He hadn't realized how beautiful she was, how commanding her presence could be. "Mr. Croft, to what do I owe the pleasure of your visit?" Serafina said with a polite, professional smile. Her formal, distant manner made Julian feel uncomfortable, as if something that once belonged to him was slipping further and further away. But he maintained his composure. "Ms. Vance, you have a short memory. You proposed a partnership, but after crashing my party, you never mentioned it again." The partnership had just been an excuse for her to attend the party and witness Isabelle's downfall. She hadn't expected him to take it seriously. She didn't know whether to call him naive or foolish. The partnership was an excuse for Julian as well. For some reason, he just wanted to see her. He hadn't been sleeping well. Thoughts of her constantly occupied his mind. They had been husband and wife for 3 years. Even if his initial intentions were poor, some bond had formed between them. Her sudden departure had left him feeling disoriented. It was a new feeling for him. 3 years ago, Isabelle's departure had only made him angry. But now, he felt an emptiness he couldn't explain. Serafina cleared her throat. "Regarding the partnership, Vance Corporation hasn't found a suitable project yet, but we are still interested. I will contact you when an opportunity arises." Julian wasn't angered by her evasive answer. He found it amusing. He gave a nod to his assistant, who took a file from his briefcase and placed it on the table. "I've brought a good project for you, Ms. Vance. I wonder if you're interested." Serafina opened the file. It was a development project for a plot of land on the west side of the city. The government had just released it, and with new schools and hospitals being built nearby, it was poised to become a new economic hub. Many had been eyeing it, but Julian had secured it. Why would you want to partner with me on such a good project? Serafina asked directly. Croft Holdings was more than capable of handling it alone. She didn't believe he was being generous. There had to be a catch. Julian smiled slightly and met her eyes. Given our relationship, isn't it natural for us to partner on good projects? We have no relationship, Serafina said, a hint of panic in her voice. They had been playing a game of polite pretense, and now he was bringing their past into it. It made her uncomfortable, and the way he was looking at her was strange, unsettling her. She just wanted him to leave. Sensing her discomfort, Julian changed the subject. As you know, many people were after this land. Now that it's in my hands, there will be some resentment. A partnership between Vance Corporation and Croft Holdings would silence any objections. Serafina considered it. He had a point. In business, being the target of envy could lead to trouble, even for the powerful. Partnering was the smart move, and Vance Corporation was the best choice in the city. Serafina's capabilities were undeniable. She had resolved both internal and external crises in a short time. Every businessman in the city respected her. This land was a guaranteed profit. In business, there are no permanent enemies, only permanent interests. She decided not to let her personal history with Julian cost her company a lucrative opportunity. So, she agreed. That night, at the city's largest nightclub, Liam Sterling was holding court in a central booth, surrounded by beautiful women. Soon, a woman in a black slip dress and stilettos walked in. Liam immediately dismissed the other women and went to greet her. My lady, you've finally arrived. We've been waiting for you. It was Serafina, who had changed and rushed over after work. Yes, Serafina. We haven't seen you in ages. And you're late. You have to take a penalty shot. The others, old friends and classmates, all children of wealthy families whose companies did business with hers, joined in the teasing. The gathering was Liam's idea. Among them, only he and Serafina were truly close. The others were more like acquaintances. But Serafina readily took 3 penalty shots. Liam didn't stop her. He knew her tolerance for alcohol was higher than anyone else's in the room. Julian was also at the club with friends. Hey, Julian. It's just a woman. You don't have to look so grim, said Evan, Julian's childhood friend. Since the incident with Isabelle, Julian had been in a foul mood, skipping their gatherings. Evan had dragged him out tonight to cheer him up, but he was still scowling, scaring away any women who might have approached. Serafina's entrance had captured everyone's attention, including Julian's. From the moment she walked in, his gaze was locked on her. Seeing her drink and interact so effortlessly with other men, he clenched his jaw. When Liam put his arm around her shoulder, Julian drained his glass and slammed it on the table. Evan jumped. Julian, what's wrong with you? Julian didn't answer, his eyes still fixed on Serafina. Evan followed his gaze and saw a familiar figure. Wasn't that the Vance heiress? Why was Julian staring at her like that? As if his world had been turned upside down. Very few people knew about Julian's marriage to Serafina. They had never had a wedding or even a family dinner. Evan only knew Julian had a wife with no background who stayed at home. He would never have connected that woman with the powerful Serafina Vance. Isn't that Serafina Vance? Why are you staring at her like that? Evan asked curiously. Don't tell me you've fallen for her. Just as he spoke, Serafina got up and left the booth. Julian immediately stood up and followed her. Hey, where are you going? Evan called after him, but got no reply. He sighed. A man in love, or out of love, was a confusing creature. Serafina went to the restroom and leaned over the sink, dry heaving. Strange. Her tolerance was usually high. Why did she feel so unwell today? Perhaps it was just exhaustion. She needed to see a doctor. When she came out of the restroom, she saw Julian leaning against the doorway, seemingly waiting for her. Though they were divorced, they were now business partners, so she couldn't just ignore him. She walked toward him with a small smile. What a coincidence. Mr. Croft. Fancy meeting you here. Meeting at the entrance to the women's restroom was quite a coincidence indeed. It's not a coincidence. I was waiting for you, Julian said seriously. She didn't know if he was being dense or just pretending. But he had taken her sarcastic comment literally. How annoying. But she had to maintain her smile. Is there something I can help you with, Mr. Croft? I never knew my wife of 3 years could hold her liquor so well. Ex-wife, Serafina corrected. We're divorced, are we? Julian smiled faintly, loosening his tie. I remember we signed a divorce agreement, but we never filed the papers with the city. She had been so busy with the company since returning to the Vance family that she had completely forgotten. Without filing the papers, they weren't legally divorced. Then we should make an appointment to take care of it, she said calmly. Her nonchalant attitude was like a dagger to his chest. He closed the distance between them, backing her against the wall. She instinctively flinched, her eyes wary. What do you think you're doing? He placed a hand on the wall, trapping her. What am I doing? I haven't even asked you why you lied to me. His warm breath on her face made her feel flustered. Years ago, she had fallen for him at first sight at a party. She had looked into his background but found he had a girlfriend, Isabelle. Not wanting to be a homewrecker, she had hidden her feelings. When Isabelle left, her hope was rekindled. But then she learned he was looking for a wife with no background. So she had hidden her identity and married him, thinking she could win his heart. She had endured everything for 3 years, only to be handed a divorce agreement the moment Isabelle returned. Her love had been in vain. She had lost herself in loving him, and now she was done. She wanted no more emotional entanglement with him. She had nothing to explain. Mr. Croft, what's the point of discussing this now? You never loved me, and I don't love you anymore. Finalizing the divorce is the best thing for both of us, isn't it? The words, I don't love you anymore, stunned him. He had never cared for her, but he knew she had loved him. Even the servants thought so. He had assumed she was after his money, but over time, he realized she genuinely seemed to like him. But he could never like a woman with no family, no background, no education. So he had ignored her love. Now, her love had come out of nowhere and vanished just as quickly. While he was distracted, Serafina stomped on his foot with her heel and ran off. Back at the booth, she still felt unwell, so she had Liam take her home. That night, Julian couldn't sleep. Her image haunted him. He got up, poured himself a drink, and sat by the window, staring at the stars. He replayed their entire relationship in his mind. From their first meeting to now, every detail was crystal clear. He remembered bringing her home, their first night together, the first time she tied his tie, the first time she cooked for him. He hadn't realized how deeply she had woven herself into the fabric of his life, into his heart. He finally understood the emptiness he had felt since she left. He couldn't divorce her. He was suddenly grateful they had never filed the papers. It gave them another chance. The next morning, Julian went straight to Serafina's office, ready to tell her he had feelings for her and didn't want a divorce. But she wasn't there. He tried to call her but remembered he didn't have her number. He had to call her secretary and leave a message. At a private hospital, Serafina was getting a check-up. She thought her nausea was due to stress and an irregular diet. She was sitting across from the doctor, holding her test results. The doctor told her she wasn't sick. She was pregnant. The news was a bombshell. During their 3 years of marriage, she had dreamed of having a child with him. His mother had constantly berated her for being childless. But Julian had always been careful, making her take pills afterward. How could she be pregnant? The doctor said she was over 3 months along. She was thin, and it didn't show. She remembered. 3 months ago, before they separated, he had come home drunk one night. That must have been it. The next morning, she had been busy making soup for his mother and had forgotten to take the pill. One mistake, and now there was a new life inside her. If this had happened before, she would have been overjoyed. But now, the doctor advised against termination, as the years of birth control pills had affected her body. If she ended this pregnancy, she might never be able to have children again. She wanted to be a mother more than anything. But this child was his. Could a child be happy with parents who didn't love each other? She went back to the Vance estate. Her mother saw her distress and brought her a glass of milk. Serafina, what's wrong? Tell me, and we'll figure it out together. She couldn't bring herself to tell her mother she was pregnant with Julian's child after everything that had happened. I'm fine, Mom. Just tired. Her mother's worry eased. You should delegate more at work. Don't do everything yourself. Serafina looked at her mother, at the white hair at her temples. Her mother had raised her alone after her father's death, never remarrying for her sake. A wave of guilt washed over her. Her mother had sacrificed so much, and she had been such a disobedient daughter. For the next few days, Serafina was distracted, even at work, and had to knock several times before entering her office. Ms. Vance. Mr. Croft from Croft Holdings is here. Julian. What did he want? As they were business partners, she couldn't refuse to see him. Mr. Croft. My apologies. I was caught up with work. She was deliberately making him wait. A subtle message that she was not at his beck and call. Julian understood. In his entire career, no one had ever dared to make him wait. But the Vance family was the wealthiest in the city. Their company just as powerful as his. Serafina had the capital to be arrogant. What can I do for you today, Mr. Croft? She asked, getting straight to the point. Julian took out a document, showed it to her, and then tore it to pieces in front of her. It was their divorce agreement. She had planned to finalize things once she had sorted out her feelings. But now she had no idea what he was doing. He was the one who wanted the divorce. What was this? Seeing her shock, a smile touched his lips. I don't want a divorce. I like you, Serafina. The sudden confession left her bewildered. Was he running a fever? She even reached out to touch his forehead. It felt normal. Just as she was about to pull her hand back, he wrapped his arm around her waist. What are you doing? Being pregnant had made her more sensitive, and she recoiled from his closeness. If he found out, he would never let her go. She pushed against his chest, keeping him at a distance. He looked at her face, his heart pounding. She could make his heart race so easily. He had never felt this way before. She pushed him away. I was just checking if you had a fever. You're talking nonsense. He had expected her not to believe him. Serafina, I know this is sudden, but please give me a chance. I'll prove to you that I'm telling the truth. He looked sincere, his eyes full of emotion, but it didn't move her. Before, she would have fallen at his feet. Now, she felt nothing but amusement. He must be sick. She gave him a humorless smile. Mr. Croft, you should see a doctor. She turned and left, telling her secretary loudly, Anne, show our guest out. Julian's face darkened, not because she had kicked him out, but because she thought his confession was a sign of illness. After that day, Julian began to pursue Serafina relentlessly. Flowers every morning, waiting for her downstairs after work. Constant messages from new numbers after she blocked the old ones. She eventually gave up blocking him and just ignored everything. She delegated all work-related meetings with him to her subordinates. She had decided to keep the baby. She wanted the child, but not the father. She needed to finalize the divorce and leave the country to have the baby in peace. Julian's current behavior was a major obstacle, so she came up with a plan. She met Liam at a cafe near her office. I'm pregnant, she said, as calmly as if discussing dinner. Liam's jaw dropped. She asked him to pretend to be her boyfriend to convince Julian to sign the divorce papers. As her childhood friend, who had secretly loved her for years, he agreed. He knew her well enough not to question her decision to raise the child alone. He would support her and love the child as his own. That evening, Serafina walked out of the Vance Corporation building arm with Liam. Julian, who was waiting, rushed over and pulled them apart. Serafina, what is this? I'm with my boyfriend. Is there a problem? She asked coolly. Boyfriend. Julian's glare was murderous. Yes, boyfriend, Serafina said, her voice cold. My lawyer will send you the divorce papers. I don't want anything. Please sign them so we can finalize this. If you refuse, I'll file with the court. She was bluffing. A legal battle would take too long. She just wanted to provoke him. A man as proud as Julian would never tolerate such a challenge to his pride. It worked. Serafina, I'm asking you one last time. Are you determined to divorce me? Yes. I don't love you anymore. The person I love now is Liam. His face went cold. Fine. I'll grant your wish. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., at the city hall. He sped off in his car. Serafina finally breathed a sigh of relief. She knew him too well. He would never want a woman who had been with another man. The next day, Serafina arrived at the city hall early. 2 o'clock came and went, but Julian was nowhere to be seen. She started to worry he had changed his mind. Finally, at 3, he arrived, looking disheveled, with dark circles under his eyes. They completed the process in silence. It was surprisingly smooth. Holding the divorce certificate, she smiled. Baby, Mommy did it. That happy? Julian's low voice broke her reverie. Of course. She glared at him and walked to her car. He sat in his own car, unable to move. He had spent the previous night drinking, and had only woken up at noon. He had thought she would have left after he was an hour late, but she had waited. Did she want to be rid of him that badly? He punched the steering wheel. Just then, a couple came out of the city hall. The woman was beaming, holding their marriage certificate up to the man, who looked indifferent and walked away. It was a mirror image of him and Serafina 3 years ago. He immediately called his assistant. Find out where Serafina is right now. The answer came back quickly. The hospital. A terrible thought crossed his mind. Was she sick? Was that why she wanted the divorce? He raced to the hospital and found her in the obstetrics and gynecology department with Liam. The doctor handed her an ultrasound report. The baby is very healthy. The father is very handsome. And the mother is beautiful. It will be a beautiful baby, the doctor said. Assuming Liam was the father, neither of them corrected her. Julian stood in the hallway, frozen, a million ants crawling over his heart. So, she was pregnant. That was why she was in such a hurry to divorce him. He didn't know how he left the hospital. Evan found him at a bar, surrounded by empty bottles. Did she divorce you? Evan asked. Julian nodded. She's pregnant, he mumbled after a long silence. Man, what did you do to make her want a divorce even when she's pregnant? Evan blurted out, then covered his mouth. The child isn't mine, Julian said flatly. He had always taken precautions. Whoa, Evan exclaimed. The Vance heiress had cheated on Julian Croft. Wait, Evan said, his drunken brain suddenly working. How do you know the child isn't yours? Accidents happen. The words hit Julian like a bolt of lightning. He jumped up. Thanks, man. He ran out, leaving his jacket behind. He went straight back to the hospital. And just as Evan had said, the child was his. The records showed she was over 3 months pregnant. 3 months ago, she was still living with him. He was certain she hadn't been with anyone else then. The despair was replaced by overwhelming joy. He was going to be a father. But then, the reality hit him. She was pregnant with his child and still wanted a divorce. Did she hate him that much? He thought of Liam and the idea of his child calling another man Dad. He would never allow it. The next morning, Julian was waiting outside her house. What are you doing here? He had been there all night, unable to bring himself to disturb her. Serafina, we need to talk. He told her everything. He finally understood her side of the story. He had been a bastard. He had taken her for granted. He loved her, and he owed her. Serafina, can we please start over? He pleaded. She shook her head firmly. No. He buried his face in his hands, his eyes red when he looked up again. Serafina, I know I messed up. I'm sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me, but please give me a chance to make it up to you. I don't ask to be with you, just to be near you, to see you. Please don't go to France. Don't take away my right to be a father. A child needs a father's love. His words struck a chord. Like him, she had grown up without a father. She didn't want that for her child. After a long silence, she made a decision. She would stay. I'm not going, Julian. But that doesn't change anything between us. You can be a father, but I have sole custody. You can see the child whenever you want, but all decisions regarding the child are mine. If you can't agree to these terms, you will never see the child, or me, again. This was her power. She was his equal now. It wasn't what he wanted, but it was enough. She was staying. The news of her pregnancy was told to her mother, who was supportive. Julian, however, did not tell his own mother. Fearing she would cause trouble, he began to hover around Serafina, a constant presence. At her grandfather Figure's birthday party, she went with Liam, looking stunning. The old man tried to play matchmaker, but Liam and Serafina knew they were just friends. In fact, Liam had confessed his feelings before leaving for a 2-year overseas assignment. She had gently turned him down, and they had remained friends. Leaving the party, Julian offered her a ride. "Let me take you to a better place to enjoy the evening breeze." He took her to the beach. As she walked along the shore, she felt the baby move for the first time. It was magical. She let him feel it, and he knelt in the sand, his ear pressed to her belly, a look of pure wonder on his face. She saw Isabelle again, working as a sales clerk in a luxury shoe store. The power dynamic had completely shifted. Isabelle, bitter and resentful, saw that Serafina was pregnant and assumed she had cheated on Julian. She took photos of Serafina and Julian at her next prenatal check-up and sold them to Julian's aunt, Jasmine, who then leaked them to the tabloids with a story about Serafina being a homewrecker. The scandal exploded. The company's board was in an uproar. But Serafina remained calm. She knew it was her aunt's doing and that Isabelle had taken the photos. Just as the board meeting reached a boiling point, the news online changed. Julian had released a public statement. "The child is mine. We are in a loving relationship. I am the one who pursued her." He included a photo of them at the beach. The narrative instantly flipped from scandal to a power couple's love story. He was waiting for her outside the meeting room. "I'm sorry," he said, "for making it public without asking you." She looked at him, the arrogant CEO now so cautious and apologetic. "You don't have to be sorry," she said, and after a pause, "Thank you." He went with her to her mother's house to explain everything. Her mother, initially hostile, slowly softened over the next few months as she witnessed his unwavering devotion to Serafina. When Serafina went into labor, it was a difficult delivery. The doctor asked them to choose between mother and child. "Save the mother," Julian shouted without a second's hesitation, his face pale with terror. Thankfully, both survived. He held her hand, tears streaming down his face, completely overwhelmed. In that moment, she saw the depth of his love. It wasn't about habit or the baby. It was about her. During her recovery, he was by her side constantly. Her mother finally came to approve of him. Seeing the change in him, he was no longer the arrogant man who had hurt her daughter, but a gentle, caring partner. One day, as he was fussing over her, making sure she wasn't cold, she looked at him, a soft smile playing on her lips. "Julian, do you still like me?" He thought for a moment, then shook his head. "It's not like, it's love. I love you." A bright, radiant smile bloomed on her face, a ray of sunshine that warmed his heart. Perhaps, she thought, she could try again with him, not just for the child, but for herself.